Hi, this is Annie Grace, author of This Naked Mind, and today I am answering readers' questions. I have an amazing question from Sue. Sue says, I have had my issues with alcohol and food too. I'm 2.5 months alcohol-free. Congratulations, Sue, that's awesome. Thanks in a large part to This Naked Mind. However, I was just thinking about all the time I've spent over the years online, watching television specials and reading self-help books to provide me with solutions to my eating and drinking problems. I was successful many times for the short term, but never permanently. My question to you for a future podcast would be, how do we rationalize all the time we spend trying to fix ourselves when I feel that all that time could have been put to better use with family, physical activity, a better job, or socializing? I'm feeling guilty, and I guess I'm feeling I could have tried harder long ago so I wouldn't be in this mess for so long. I'm 60 years old. I've spent a period of my life isolating myself from the world and accomplishing very little. I know it's not too late for me, and I'm really ready now to begin again, but how do I do that guilt-free? So, Sue, a few things about this. First of all, I don't believe that we should ever look at time invested in ourselves as a mistake. In fact, I believe that we should look at almost nothing in our entire lives as a mistake, especially when you become aware of what's going on with you. So if you think for me about the moment when I first became aware that I needed to change my drinking, it was a very, very painful moment for me. It was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, my whole world feels like it's crashing down. I don't know who I am anymore. I feel like I've let myself down. I feel like I've let my husband down. I felt very, very uncomfortable and very painful. And in that moment, I felt a huge amount of guilt and regret. But now, if you fast forward years later and I look back at that moment, I realize that nothing could have been possible that I'm doing now. And my life that I have now was not possible without that moment. So the sooner you can realize that the things that are happening and have happened, they're all part of your path. They're all part of what is you. And those things are all good things. They all can come together to make you and be used by you to be the person that you want to be. So I want to say that first, is that any period of investment in self, whether it's watching, television specials or reading books or even getting help or going, in person to therapy, whatever it is, that time is precious and valuable time. And it was something that you needed at the time. And I highly encourage you to just not feel guilty about this. Number two, let's talk about guilt in general. Okay. Brene Brown, she talks about the difference between guilt and shame. And so guilt is something that says, okay, we have this set of standards that we want to live by, and we've fallen short of them. So it's like an objective measure, right? So we've fallen short of, I feel guilty because I didn't want to eat like a dozen chocolate chip cookies, and I did. So I feel guilty because my standard was that I'm not going to binge on chocolate chip cookies. All right. And then there's shame. And shame is when we feel like we did something wrong and we want to hide. Shame has that very direct, and you said it in your note, you wanted to isolate yourself, you wanted to be apart from other people. And shame is something where we didn't just fall short of a set of standards, we feel like we fell short and therefore are unworthy or unlovable. And the feeling with shame is that desire to hide. And it's very important to realize that shame does not serve us. It cannot serve us. And shame is not a healthy emotion. In fact, it's one of the least healthy emotions there is. And shame has no purpose, okay, in terms of bringing us forward, right? We have to let go of that. And often, even like just reaching out to me and not hiding and expressing what's going on can be huge in terms of overcoming shame, because all we have to do is shine a light, because guess what? We're all super messed up, every single one of us. And so when we start to shine a light and share that with others, shame can evaporate because it cannot stand up to the light. So guilt then, let's talk about guilt. So guilt is you have this set of standards and you haven't lived up to it. And what you're feeling guilty about is having spent too much time trying to fix yourself. Now, I don't think necessarily you're feeling guilty about that as much as you're feeling ashamed about the fact that you had to fix yourself in the first place. And I would just tell you that that's all of us. That's all of us. And the time you have to fix yourself, you say you feel guilty because you don't feel like then you had enough time with your family or your friends or anything else like that. And you might not show up as the same person you're showing up for or be the person they need you to be without that time that you have invested or are currently investing in yourself. So there's no, for me, sense in feeling guilty about really focusing on you and self-improvement, because the truth is we cannot serve others before we serve ourselves. We can't really truly love and appreciate others before we love and appreciate ourselves. You know, there's even a verse in the Bible that echoes this. It's like, love your neighbor as yourself. The implied thing is that you have to love yourself first before you can love your neighbor. And I think that's really important. So I just really want you to be able to let go of that. And then I want to say one more thing about guilt, and it's this. Very often, guilt is a self-indulgence. All right. And I know it sounds a bit harsh and it's kind of tough love, but guess what? Guilt can make us feel better in the moment. And here's why. Because if we feel guilty, we feel like we're doing something about the problem without actually doing something about the problem. If I just fall on my sword and berate myself and I'm so mad at myself, then it relieves some of our sense of falling short of the person or the scenario that we're falling short of. And it actually can deflect our responsibility from what we need to change, because we're so caught up in, it's almost self-indulgent, like it's almost self-pity. Is this, oh geez, well, I've done it again. I'm always doing this and all this stuff. And even in your own head, what do you respond when you feel like, oh, well, either other people respond, it's not that bad, or in your own head, you're like, you know, it's this thing where you almost do it in order to get, like, I don't know how to put it best, but in order to distract yourself from taking the be a heck of a lot easier and feel a lot more like a quick fix to really beat yourself up about something rather than actually do the work to change that something. So I don't know if that's playing in here at all, but I did want to present it as kind of another option. So basically, to recap, just to say, like, really identify if what you're feeling is guilt or shame. And if it's shame, like, do everything you can to come bring that into the light so that it can't exist, because shame is an incredibly toxic emotion. And if it's guilt, then let guilt serve its purpose of just moving you forward towards you want to be, but don't get caught in the cycle of always beating yourself up about something, because we can often do that in order to not actually address the something and actually let go of some of our personal responsibility for it. There's a saying that I love, speaking of personal responsibility, and it's just this idea that it's not your fault, right? Things that have happened to you, circumstances, especially, you know, things regarding addiction, like, these things are not necessarily our fault, but they are our responsibility. Even if something happened to you that was completely, like, say your house burned down, right? That would be horrible. And it was an accident, like a lightning bolt struck it. It's not your fault. But there's nobody but you that's going to call the insurance company. And there's nobody but you that's going to, you know, make the arrangements. And there's nobody but you that's going to do the things needed to do in order to get your house, because it's still your responsibility, even when it's not your fault. So anyway, I'd like you to view that and just have a lot of appreciation for yourself. The fact that you feel so motivated right now in your life is amazing. And I would ask yourself one more question. That guilt, like, who is it really serving? Because again, when we feel guilty, the only person it is often serving is us. It relieves that sense of kind of like we didn't do it or we fell short, but it's a very temporary relief and it doesn't actually progress us forward. But is your guilt actually serving your friends and family who you want to be spending more time with? Is it actually serving the future you who wants to just break free of this? And if it's not, 100% just let it go. So thank you so much and great question.